So we always love to start our conversations just going back to the younger years. Is there any type of memory of falling in love with music that sticks out to you?
Yeah, absolutely. it was so funny. It was when I started seeing younger people play music, and I was young too. I was around 10. And it was I saw like the Hanson brothers playing, and
Nice.
they were
Yeah.
like 10, 12, and 13. I was like, "What is this?" And then my dad showed me the Jackson 5, and I saw like all these kids up on stage, and and that's when it really clicked for me. And there's a home video of my dad like asking my brothers like, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And my older brother's like a doctor. The other
Yeah.
one's like a firefighter, and I'm like 10 years old, and I was like a rock star. So it was very, very early. Yeah, right around. I vividly remember I was about 10 because that's when I got my first drum set for Christmas. So
Yeah, I was like doing like a little bit of research too, and I saw that like at 10 with drums, and I'm like, man, I couldn't even do like rock band on the drums in my 20s. How like that is just wild to think at that young age, and then something like that makes such an impact on you and music in general.
it changed me, and it gave me an outlet too, because then
Mhm.
through like as I was growing up, I could just go downstairs and beat the crap out of my drum set. You know what I mean? And it felt a little better than going and like messing with the piano, and
Hmm.
I could just
Mhm.
go down there and play until I was drenched in sweat.
Yeah, and like that's one of the things anyone we have on, whether it's guitarist, but mainly the drummers, they'll say like there's nothing like it just getting off work or whatever and just beating on the drum set
Mm,
and having that, even if it's just not a specific song, but that moment with the drums. I'm like, I guess I don't play music. I'm trying
yeah.
to learn how to play. I'm almost
Yeah.
there, but it's one of those things I guess I never thought about. Like, yes, playing a song, but just even just the motion of or strumming a guitar,
Mhm.
what that does to
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, and you'll see it too. You'll see guitar players hitting those power chords, and you're like, how are they not breaking every single string on that thing right now? But yeah, it's a release, and it's a nice one, a nice, healthy, artistic release.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even you like brought up too, like the Jackson 5. I think that's it's funny because my first CD I ever bought was like the Michael Jackson like history because it was like the first record I wanted to buy. I don't know why to this day. Like I told my parents like I don't know why, but I was like we need to go to Best Buy and get this because like I love Michael Jackson and it was just like that double disc and just everything about it. And I think people sometimes, are like, "Oh, I don't want to admit that or I don't want to say that." But it's like that was incredible. It is incredible music.
Oh yeah, I'm a huge pop head. I
Mhm.
am unashamedly a lover of all things pop. You will hear me listening to August Burns Red, and you will hear me listening to Justin Bieber in this
Mhm.
in the next song, and unashamedly so. Yeah.
Oh, I
I
love
love
that.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
that's like
used to be so
Justine.
ashamed when I was younger because I was younger. I was obviously super into pop. The boy bands. I was very much Backstreet Boys girl,
Oh yeah.
all of that. And then as I started getting into the alternative scene, I was like, oh, I can't like that anymore.
Hmm.
It's like if I let anybody know that I liked pop music and I kind of like refused to listen to it for a while, and then it was just like, why do I care? I
Yeah,
should just listen to
it
whatever I
was.
like.
And like people would get in my car, and I remember this in high school. People would get in my car and I would swap out the CD. Like I had
Yeah.
my CDs, like my
Hmm.
burn CDs, and then I had the CDs that I could put in like when my friends were in the car with like Drop Dead Gorgeous,
Oh
like
my gosh.
things like that. And then I put in my other CD and it's like Rihanna. And
Oh god.
then, yeah.
I
But
love that.
I love that. That's like such a well-rounded musician, I feel, because I know people don't want to admit that stuff, but it's like I feel like when you hear people say that, like I've had some bands on here. Oh, what was it? I think it was a Moment's Notice. They were like this one of the heavier bands I've had on. And when they were talking to me, it was like some of the things they were talking about, like the music they like and what they still veer towards. It was like I would never think that in your music. And it's always so interesting to hear things like that. And I hope it inspires other people to be like, it's okay. Like, no one's going to make fun of you now. Like,
No one,
Yeah.
it's
especially
cool.
now, every genre
Yeah.
is
Mhm.
blending together. I think
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I touched 18 genres with my 18 songs on my album. You know what I mean?
Oh
Like
my gosh.
it's all
Yeah. I was gonna say, like, hearing you say that is I can hear that in what you
Hmm.
create, which is
Yeah.
amazing. And one of the things too, I loved what you do as far as to you're from originally from Omaha and now living in Philadelphia, which I know what that like similar. I did not from Omaha, but Illinois, like, and
Midwest.
now I'm in New Jersey, and I know what that's like to like move from the Midwest to then somewhere like Philly or Jersey, where it is like hustle and bustle, and there are attitudes. We
Mhm.
love those attitudes, but there are attitudes.
Yeah.
How do you think being in Philadelphia has helped your music?
It's been up and it's been down. So Omaha, well, I was this is very young, but I was born in New Hampshire and my dad
Okay.
grew up in Newark, New Jersey. So I have this whole like second life where I would go to New Jersey and like I'm very used to the East Coast.
Mm-hmm.
Uh but what I didn't account for is I spent 20 years grinding the Omaha scene to the point where I know every venue owner. You could ask me to just name a venue and I would just tell you. I
Mm-hmm.
would tell you who to call to play there. And I moved to Philly and I was like, oh, that's right. No,
Mm-hmm.
no one here knows me and I don't know anyone here. And so I think it was really challenging, to just hit up a venue and be like, hey, can I play? And I wouldn't get a response, you
Yeah.
know. And it made me realize like just because, I'm bringing a follower count or a pre-existing listener base, like it doesn't matter. Like I have to cut my teeth again in a new city, and like network with these other bands here that are independent and local and, you know, that that has that was kind of like my new thing. It's like, okay, I really have to go in here and network. I really have to go meet everyone, go to these local shows, like see what's going on, get a pulse on the city. Because I did come here lost and confused.
Oh, hearing you say that, I'm like, I am seen because I thought like I knew that Chicago scene like the back of my hand, same with the venues and just all that thing, all the things I did. I was like, I'm gonna move to Jersey and I'm gonna do this with music. I love the scene. I get here and again, whether it's no responses or like, who are you? Like, why? And again, now it's different, but I had to find my people, but it
You
was like
gotta find it,
intimidating.
yeah.
It was intimidating and it was just like making me feel like for a while I didn't do anything with music because I was like, well, I don't know, I'm like scared. And then now I'm like, not only that, but then like being a girl and like going into these places. And now that I found my people, I'm like, okay, I love it. But like,
Yeah.
I wanted to leave, like, right. I'm like, what am I doing? I left what I knew and everything I had.
It's so important to find your people. I got really lucky and found
Yeah.
my people here pretty early. They're just random chances in the wild, and have cultivated a lovely group of friends and
Mhm.
support system here that I'm in love with. But yeah, when I first got here, I was terrified, you know.
Yeah.
I was like, what
Interview.
have I done?
Exactly. What have you done? And you're like, and again, it's always a great though, then to look back as those moments when you're like, what have I done? And then like now you're like, oh, okay, this is why I came here. This is why I'm
Yeah,
doing it. And like that's where too I love and that you always say too, like, yes, you're in Philadelphia, you're doing that, but Omaha is where it started and it's so
yeah,
special to you. And I love because I think so many people sometimes forget where they came from or want to say, okay, I'm here now. This is my home base.
yeah.
But I loved reading that about you that like you're still very much like Omaha all the way.
I am. I think that Omaha has a lot of potential, and I think that it's a young city, and people don't know about it. I'll say I'm from Omaha. They're like, "What's going on there?" I'm like, "What's
Yeah.
going on there?" Almost, over 1 million people in the metro. It's going on. It's
Yeah.
cool. And what's cool about Omaha is you get to make a difference because the city. Maybe it's never in Philly, there's been pizza festivals happening all the time, but in Omaha, maybe no one's ever thought of the idea to have a pizza festival. And so
Right.
you can go and throw a pizza festival and literally make the city different because of your one little stupid idea. And that's just what's cool about Omaha is it's like it is a big city, but you can do stuff and like people will come because everyone's actively looking for something to do and you can kind of shape the city. And a lot of the bands that blew up in Omaha, there's quite a few of them. A lot of people
Hmm.
don't even know that they're from Omaha. And I'll tell them that and they're like, "Oh, I thought they were from LA or I thought they were from here or here." And I'm like, "No, that's just what they
It's
claim
saying,
now, but Saddle Creek, that whole
oh,
era."
oh yeah, like I was just gonna say, like, think about that era right now. And like it's weird because like this resurgence of like the emo music and all
Mm.
that. I'm like, where are the Saddle Creek people? Where are the people like shouting about, maybe there's out there on TikTok or like Bright Eyes and just I'm like, let's get that resurgence a little bit.
Yeah.
Let's get that era because I loved that was me growing up. I was a Saddle Creek person.
Yeah, Saddle Creek was great. Like all the bands that came from it and all the artists. I think what happened, I was boots on the ground. I was in
Hmm.
Omaha during this and I saw it happen. It was the hipster takeover. That
Hmm.
that
Mm,
slight wave of
yeah.
pretentiousness that came over the emo scene and the gatekeeping and suddenly we didn't know where the shows were at.
Yeah.
Bright Eyes would come play and it would be a secret show that they just no one knew. You just have to find out. Someone would text you, and it would just be
Yeah.
like someone's basement, and you're like, "Dude, you could sell out like the biggest venue here. Why are you playing in Tom's basement?"
Right.
But yeah, I think that kind of like locked in like who was already a fan and like who was in. And
Yeah.
then kind of kept everyone else out. I think the hardcore scene struggled with that a little bit, and now is letting people in. Now that hardcore is going mainstream,
Right.
so I
And
see, I
people
see it.
And people can say like maybe that's not a good thing too. Like they always say things about mainstream stuff. And to me, I'm like, the more the merrier. Let's do this. Like I don't want to be that person. Like I love that some of my favorite bands now younger people. Like if I even like look at my chem, there's younger fans
Yeah.
that are there. And then there's us too, like in our 30s that like love my chem too and want to go.
Yeah,
But I love that like I hate the gatekeeping nature. And even though I was a gatekeeper back in the day, I was that gatekeeper. I did
me
it.
too.
I see how wrong it is. I
Me
was so
too.
wrong. I'm like, oh my gosh. But I tell people like how I was with, like Fall Out Boy in like Chicago,
Yeah.
what I did. I'm like, I was evil. I was so bad. I can't believe I was like that. Thank God I can't get my MySpace.
When I went through my math core era,
Mhm.
I was probably so unbelievably difficult to be around. Like,
Oh gosh.
to talk music with. Like, oh, you don't listen to Maps and Atlases. They just put out a song in 7/16 time. And it's just
Oh,
try to
there's
find the one. You can't. Yeah.
no, but so good. I love maps and atlases. So like anytime anyone can bring them up, let's do it.
Yeah, rare little.
Amazing.
That's a rare reference right there. Maps
Yeah.
analysis. Saw them with Circus Survive 10 years ago, I
Oh,
think.
oh
Maybe
yes.
even longer. I keep getting older in that. Sorry, I keep having to change how long ago it was.
They did though. I was at that tour because I remember I was like, I can't believe they're bringing maps and
Oh,
atlases
you
out.
saw that you went to that tour. Okay.
Yes. Oh
Yeah,
my gosh, it
I
was
was at that tour too.
some random place and like
Yeah,
I think just seen the same show in Palestine. I think
might have
because
been.
we were there.
Probably.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't need to get on a Circus Survive rant because Justine and I, the way we are with
Yeah.
Anthony Green
Well,
and that bad. Oh my gosh. All right, so you are one
My
of
safe
us.
camp
I have
tattoo
my
tucked
safe
away
camp,
underneath my camera.
my safe camp and my on letting go colors.
yeah.
And she's got,
We've all
yeah.
got one.
So we
Yeah.
are one.
I have just been one-upped so hard.
No, I love this though. Nobody else has been able to like with Circa. So this is golden.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we
This
love
is the
this.
best. We will
If we
take
could
it.
have more people that happen to have a safe camp somewhere, like we would, it'd be great.
That's it. That's one of the reels. That's it.
Yeah.
Um, but I know I could go off on that all the way, but go ahead, Justine. Sorry. I'm like, I got to rant about Saddle Creek and all this
Oh,
stuff.
yeah, of course. So, part of our podcast has to deal with the intersection of music and mental health. And we know that you've said in other interviews that music has been like therapy. So, how has it helped aid in your mental health?
It's really what's funny is it's two parts of it. It's the performative side of it, and it's also the narrative side of it. If you listen to my music, you'll see that it is very narrative. My lyrics are less metaphorical and poetic than you might find from other artists and more direct. I like to tell stories, and I'm not making stories up. A lot of this stuff is I'm writing about what's happening in my life in that exact moment. Um, and that in itself is therapeutic because it's almost like I get permission to trauma dump a little bit. Do you know what
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
mean? I
Yeah.
like I have a therapist, sure, but like I get to like really woe is me a little bit and get that out, and just get
Yeah.
those feelings of like, oh, poor me, whatever. Put it in a song, process it, and ship it. But then also the performance aspect is something where I could be in a bad state of mind or think, I'm 30, I just turned 35. Like, what am I doing? I'm still grinding this so hard. And then
Yeah.
I just went and played in New York City and see people singing my lyrics back at me from an album I had just dropped like a month prior, thinking that no one was even going to be there. Um, and so the performance side too, it just bolsters confidence in me, makes me feel like I'm good at something, like I'm supposed to be doing something. So yeah, those two things combined is really what it is. I think that if I was just writing music for myself, I hate to say it, but I don't think it would be as therapeutic if I wasn't
Hmm.
able to be like,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
like, it's like that feeling of being able to like sob into your best friend's chest and just dump on them and let them hear. It's kind of like that feeling. You let it out and you're like, this is this really emotional state that I was in and I was able to capture it. Uh, Here it is, you know.
Yeah, and you hear that in your music. And I think
Yeah.
too, and even not only your music, but what you choose to present like on your social media. Like something I resonated with is where I forget what festival it was, but you were talking about being in the car,
Yeah.
having a panic attack, and having to wait, for that to pass. Because I think a lot of us don't even think about that in our mental health, or maybe like, oh, someone that creates content is dealing with it, or a musician. And to see that, I was like, I have been there so many
Mm.
times. And even like going back when I first moved here, I was like, okay, I'm in my car. I want to go to the show, but the parking has caused this panic attack. And
Mm-hmm.
now I am sitting here and I want to go in. I have a ticket. I want to do this, but need this to pass. And how do I get it to you? And I think it was just so real. And do you think like, because obviously it's hard to be vulnerable and open up in that way, especially on the internet. For you, do you think like the community you've built in your music has helped you be more open with things like that?
Yeah, definitely. I feel a level of safety when I
Yeah.
post stuff like that. Because in the very beginning, like when I first started making content, it was all mental health focused. So
Hmm.
the people who followed me back in 2021 was when I put up my first piece of like Is It Josh content.
Hmm.
That was all mental health for the first 5 months before I even decided, like, you know what, I'm gonna try music again, just without a band this time because I'm sick
Yeah.
of my band's breaking up. You know? And so yeah, I think that having that like core group, my Gloom Squad is what we're called, uh, it- even though, I think there's probably about a couple hundred of them that I know are just gonna be there and will react positively, and they'll set the stage for what comes next. And that video you're talking about went a little more viral than I had hoped it would have.
Yeah.
But there wasn't, I don't think that there was a mean comment. And
Yeah.
I do react and respond to every comment on my social media
Mhm.
usually. And yeah, it was safe. It was nice. A lot of people just being like, "Thank you for this," because I needed it. And truly, that video helped me get over my panic attack. So I was able to do that, post it, and be like, "Wow, I just worked. Like I just did
Right.
something." And then I was able to march in there and go about it not feeling like a fraud. I could post
Hmm.
those cool like, "Look, I'm backstage because I know the boys in August Burns Red and we're hanging out and blah blah blah. Look, life is so cool."
Yeah.
You know, just so you know, I was panicking just like everyone else, and now I'm doing all this cool stuff. So just like I don't like that disconnect. I feel more comfortable when it's like, "Hey guys, I'm really anxious right now, but we're gonna do something." You know?
Yeah, that's so important. And I think
Yeah.
seeing that, and I remember those early TikToks, like that's what made me follow you. That I remember, like, it's like obviously, like, that's what now our podcast, intersection of music and mental health, but like, that's what I gravitate are those people that are, I'm like, I see myself in them. Like, I see
Oh,
Yeah.
myself and I know
yeah.
others the same way. And I'm like, I was just that video just hit me so hard. And it's not even like the only one. I can probably go back and be like, yeah, that resonated with me. And I think people like you are so important to see online because it's easy. Even like with us, it's easy for me to post, oh, this great big interview or this what I have, this guest, but they don't know that like, yeah, I threw up before that or I did
Right.
that. Like they
Burp
don't know
gagging
what
the
I
whole
did.
time, like sitting there waiting to
Mhm.
let them into the Zoom.
Oh my gosh. If people only knew, like usually it's like, okay, like even like before this, I'll get in a way. And then once we let in and we're in, I'm like, okay, what was going on there for the past
Right.
30 minutes? I don't understand. And it's like anxiety is so mental health, just everything is so real. So what do you kind of do to cope in that?
I there's one tried and true, and it's the ground yourself and breathe. You
Hmm.
know,
Yeah.
smell. What can you smell? What can you hear? What can you taste? What can you see? Uh, and I actually, it's so funny that I took it off. I was just wearing a necklace before I put these on. I have a necklace that helps me with that, and it makes sure that I can take a deep breath through my nose, and it takes exactly 7 seconds to exhale. And there's actually science behind that, where your heart speeds up as you breathe in and it
Yeah.
slows down as you breathe out. So if you breathe in less than you breathe out, I guess the sign is your heart will slow down naturally. And that's like my first go-to. But sometimes it doesn't work. And I'm a
Mhm.
medicated person too. So sometimes I will be on an anti-anxiety medication that should very much so not make me anxious. I just did my breathing. I've grounded myself and I still want to throw up. And that's the
Mhm.
reality of it sometimes. And then you have to tell yourself, okay, maybe we should shift the focus to what's my escape plan? What
Mhm.
happens if I can't handle this when I'm in there? Instead of, and you get that focus away from like, what happens if I don't go in here? That's what I try not to focus on. It's more, what happens if I fail once I try? And I think when I shift my mindset to that, it helps. So it's just a lot of active brain work. You can't just
Mhm.
you really have to actively shut that stuff down. Sometimes I'll get a bad thought and I will physically out loud say, nope, to stop it, and
Mhm.
pivot my brain. So I think that that's a big thing is like a lot of us, and myself was I was guilty of this is, you get prescribed some medications early on. They tell you you're depressed or you're anxious. You take them, things aren't getting better. They give you some more, things aren't getting better. You're not really, it's not until you start putting in that work, catch yourself
Mhm.
doing things, and then you have to work at it. It's not, for some people, sure, I guess you could just take a pill and be better, but yeah, I think it's a lot of active brain work, catching your subconscious in the middle of its loop and breaking out of that and be like,
Mhm.
no, we're not
Yep.
doing that.
Oh,
I
I
think
need to do
it's
that. I need to like practice that and be like, nope, because I don't do that. And I think I just learned something where I'm like, I'm gonna try that.
Yeah, try it. Literally, anyone listening, next time
Yeah.
you get in like a spiral of bad thoughts, blurt it out. Nope. And maybe even just say something positive after that. And
Yeah.
it literally, you might even giggle at yourself, but it will stop it. It will. Because you're physically pulling yourself out of that. And you're the
Yeah.
only one who can.
Hmm.
You could be surrounded by 10 people and they have no idea that your brain is
Yeah.
spiraling a million miles an hour while they're talking about a movie they all want to go see. You know?
Hmm. Yeah. Very real.
I think it's so important that you mentioned that as well. I think so many people when they're going through things think that like once they have that medication, that like everything's gonna be perfect. It's gonna be fine, everything's gonna be great. And I don't think anybody realizes, necessarily at the beginning of that is that it is work. It's always gonna be work. And I love that you mentioned that you have that necklace because like I always keep fidgets on hand. So
Oh,
like
cool. Yeah.
I take them everywhere if I go out in public even. Like this is
Yeah.
my best like fidget for
Yeah.
taking out too. Like it's
Part of why
it
I wear
helps.
rings as well, spinning them
Yes.
and just clicking them
Hmm.
together and things like that.
It's
Just
like sometimes like, just having a little like toolbox of things, like fidget
uh-huh.
toys and things like that can help too. And I think and I love that. I love that you mentioned that because I think it's so important and so many people get in that mindset of like, okay, well, medicine will just fix everything.
Yep.
And it doesn't.
Nope. It's a
It
it's a
doesn't.
tool in our toolbox and it
Exactly.
Hmm.
has to be utilized, in the
Yes.
correct way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as a disabled person, I personally love seeing when bands and singers are accessible at shows. And we know that you use an ASL interpreter at your
Mhm.
shows, and we don't see that enough in
Yeah.
things. And we want to give you a moment to just kind of talk about that.
I would love to, and I will try not to take too many moments to talk about this. I will say that I'll just call it out. I'll call it out what's going on. There is a systematic problem in our industry where
Yeah.
ADA is being ignored.
Hmm.
And if it's not being ignored, people are being shoved into the corner of rooms in their wheelchairs with no line of sight. Deaf people, hard of hearing people are having to go to shows and not know what's going on. And I'll tell you right now, the reason you don't see ASL is because there have been several times that I have played a show and a fan has requested ASL interpreters, knowing that I am going to then have the venue provide that, and the venue
Mhm.
has charged me um, a lot of money for the
Oh
interpreters,
my
and this
gosh.
happens a lot. And you don't want to make that fan feel like a burden,
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
you don't want yourself to get wrapped up in this negative rapport with the venue, and so you eat that cost, and now you're negative, and you're going back out on the road. And all I can say is it's something that I'm going to actively fight for and keep actively fighting for. Um, in a bigger way than I have already. And I'm trying to word this very carefully.
Mhm.
Um, but I think that us as a scene need to do better, you know? Just because there's chairs at a punk show doesn't make it not punk. What's punk is
Mhm.
letting
Yes.
anyone who needs a chair to be able to sit, you know? What's punk is letting someone de-stim a little bit in a room or, a desensory room where they can kind of chill out for a
Yes.
second. These no re-entry policies, I get it. We don't want people going to their cars, doing a bunch of
Right.
stuff, and then coming back. Cool. Let's take a look at the system as a whole because right now, especially in the alternative scene, we are dropping the ball across the country. I can't speak for other countries, but for the US, we are
Yeah.
dropping the ball. Um, Go to any disabled forum, go to a subreddit, and just type in festival or type
Yes.
in concert and see what
Mhm.
happens. See what they're talking about, and you will see what I am talking about. So, yeah, passionate
Mhm.
about it. Will always be
Yes.
accommodating to my fans that need any assistance at all. And I am working on something that hopefully will push this forward in the scene. So, yeah.
I love to hear that you have joy, like
Mhm.
I'm beaming right now.
Yeah.
I talk about this a lot with Lisa, even like a lot of times why I don't always make it out to shows sometimes is because of the accessibility issues and everything, depending on what venue they're at. Um, as my mobility issues have gotten worse, the tipping point that made me wake up and realize, okay, it's time for mobility aids was when I went to Riot Fest.
Mm,
I went to Riot Fest, and when the show let out, there was no like designated area to be at to get your rides.
yeah.
And we had to just keep walking and walking and walk. Well, I couldn't walk anymore.
I remember I've been yeah, I
Hmm.
know the situation of leaving that festival.
Yeah,
I
Yeah, I
know
was
the
just gonna
walk.
say,
yeah.
Yeah.
yep.
Anybody from the Chicago area who's been there, like they know. And it was terrible because like I couldn't walk anymore and my legs were hurting, my feet were hurting. I was sitting on the ground and it was in a really gross area.
Mm,
Mhm.
But I couldn't help it. There was nothing else for me to do. And we were having trouble getting a ride to get to us. And that was the moment where I finally was like, oh, okay, yeah, no, I can't ever go to a show again without having a mobility aid.
Mhm.
And so now I have a walker with a seat on it.
yeah.
So that helps, if I get to go somewhere where I'm like, I don't know the seating issue. So then I have a place to sit. But
And that's
even
the
so,
problem that you might not have just meant to highlight. We should
yeah,
know. We should
yeah,
know if they're sitting,
exactly.
and we
Yeah.
should know if there's a ramp, and we should know all
Yes.
these things up front. And if you're a venue owner, you should read Title III of the Americans for Disabilities Act
Yes.
and do
Mhm.
better.
Yes. Because like even when somebody does have like, quote unquote a disabled area, it sucks. It's like
Sucks.
Well,
there'll be like a taped off square in the middle of like a mosh area. And it's
At
like,
one of my
that's
concerts,
great.
one of the interpreters got engulfed in the mosh pit.
Oh my
Like,
gosh.
wow.
yeah, and I remember seeing it and just being like, "Oh no!" Like, so it's just I see it everywhere. Yeah, we need some help.
Yes. And I think a lot of people forget that like there's so many of us in the alternative spaces
Yeah.
that are disabled in some way because even if you don't have a need for mobility aids, like I'm autistic, so like you were mentioning having like an area for if you need to just kind of,
Yeah.
calm down a little bit from all the stimulation. Like there is always going to be somebody disabled in some way that really needs this, and the
Yeah.
alternative spaces has a lot of it, and a lot of us need that, and
I will
it's
say
never accessible.
incarceration, where I filmed that video,
Yeah.
Hmm.
where I was having that panic attack in my car. As I was leaving on the third night, I walked past this tent and it was labeled something. But I said, "What is this place?" And they said it's a low sensory area for our, and they
Awesome.
had it. And so shout out
Yeah.
Incarceration for
Mm-hmm.
having that because
Yeah.
I don't really have sensory issues. And
Mhm.
by the end of Incarceration, I was like, I
Yeah.
can't, like I don't want to hear anything anymore. Like I I wanted to shut
Yeah.
my ears off. It was
Yeah.
every direction. I was getting hammered with everything. And I walked past that and I was like, gosh, it's so nice that they have that. And so yeah, shout out Incarceration for having
That's awesome. Yeah.
a
Like that's
sensory
rare to
tent.
see. So I
Yeah.
love to hear that.
Yeah, no, that was one thing I was like, I have to touch on with this because
Mhm.
it is so important. And for me, like I think about like I was just doing this article about like top Chicago venues. And one of the things I now look for is, well, what is their policy? How does someone, if they are in a wheelchair or if they have a mobility aid, can they access?
Mhm.
And some of my favorite venues, I'm not going to name them because I don't know.
I get it. Yeah, yeah.
I don't
It's
want to get
hard.
into that. But literally, there is no wheelchair access. And I was like,
Mhm.
this is one of the most iconic venues
Yeah.
in Chicago. How, again, I never thought about it because
Hmm.
honestly, I'm like, I'll be
Mhm.
honest. I'm like, I didn't, I know it's going to sound horrible for me to say, but it didn't affect me at the
No, it's
time. And
okay.
I just didn't think about
That's
it.
just
And
usually what the deal
That's
is.
how
Yeah.
it is.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. No,
yeah.
Yeah.
And as I'm
yeah.
older, I'm like, wow, I'm like, I was kind of being like a little bit of an asshole there. Like, well, I need to check myself, my younger
Hmm.
self, and be like, wow, no, we need to do something. Like, something needs to happen. This venue has been up for so many years and there's no changes to that. There's nothing there. So, like, what if my favorite band plays there? I can't go,
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
you
And
know?
I always, I've had venues push back on stuff like ramps and things, and it's like,
Sure.
you know, cost $25 to rent one of those ramps that they use
Yeah.
for luggage. Do you know what I mean? Like, and there's
Exactly.
just so many ways around it. If you can't afford an interpreter, there's live captioning systems. There's getting
Mhm.
the artists to print out their lyrics beforehand or something
Yeah.
like that. Anything where you can do your best to accommodate without putting complete undue burden on your venue or you're gonna go bankrupt,
Right.
But things as simple as like making a modification to allow wheelchair users in or
Yes.
having an interpreter pool on standby ready for a ASL requests or having a nice viewing area for anyone who's got to
Mhm.
sit 2-3 feet off the
Mhm.
ground because they're in a wheelchair,
Right.
let them
Yes.
see the
Yes.
stage.
I've had that, or I'm sitting on my walker and I was like, well, I can't stand, but everybody's like way up here. And I was
Yeah.
just like,
You got
I'm
people
here.
like
It's
me
what
6 foot
matters. It's
tall
fine.
standing in front of you just like
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. Like I'm already short. So it was already a problem if I was standing, but then it's like,
yeah.
but I would always like to remind people. So does, I mean, most people that are in disabled spaces, we like to remind everybody that whereas you're not disabled now, at some point in your life, if you happen to live long enough, you will become disabled at some
Mhm.
Yeah.
point. And I think that's one of the biggest problems as well is it is very common to not think about these things because you're not dealing with it yourself, but at some point in time, you're going to be dealing with it.
Yeah.
So it's, might be great to, jump on the ball right now trying to figure this out for
Yeah.
all of us so that when
Yeah.
your time
100%.
comes, you
Yeah.
know, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. You hear that, venues? All right, we're gonna make some changes. But
This is the
um,
call out.
this is it right now. And so obviously we have to touch on there's been a debut album that has come out. It is again 18 songs, like you said, and I love that a collection of short stories about the heart is out, and it is a record to me. I love that. I'm a record person. I want to
Ah.
make me sit down and listen to it. I know we're in a singles era. I understand that record labels may hate what I'm saying, but I am that forever person. I want to go and be taken on a journey in a record. I want to be
Mhm.
forced to listen, and you've given us 18 songs, which is like music to my ears.
Yeah.
What are you most proud of now that it's out for all of us to hear?
Oh, great question. And it's
Mm.
such a hard one to answer.
Yeah.
There are a couple things that I'm proud of. One is how the album sonically fits together.
Hmm.
I did want to tell all of these songs were not written to be told together, but they are touching on very similar themes and things that were happening to me. And so I really wanted to chronological them, but it's just not quite. There's a few time skips and jumps around because we really took the time sonically to listen to the last ring out note of every song and then like
Mhm.
what's coming next, you know? So I wanted to make sure for the people like you
Mhm.
that you would get that experience where it doesn't just feel like you're jumping from single to single. Like
Yeah.
every song, every key signature, everything is going into the next one. We're looking at music theory when we're doing this. We're really getting into the weeds with it. And so that's something I'm proud of. But I think it's gonna sound weird is I'm a solo artist who works with producers and my
Mhm.
producers are my best friends and they co-write with me and they help me with stuff but when it comes down to it like that was 18 songs and I had 18 songs in me, you
Mhm.
know. And it was like, what am I gonna do with this? And so conceptualizing it, thinking of the name, thinking of the art, thinking of how everything fits together, thinking of which songs to keep, which ones to get rid of. Should there be 18 songs? Should I do
Mhm.
18 videos? What's my post-release strategy look like? What's my pre-release strategy look like?
Yeah.
All of that was it was just like, oh, it's just me. I have to do all this. So I think that, you know, it's not so much a music answer, but like the whole process of creating an album cohesively and then putting it out into the world is so complex. Um, that I'm proud of myself for doing it and just getting
Mhm.
it done. Like saying, hey, I'm gonna do 18 songs, and then I did it. And I think that any record label would have made me cut
Right.
6 or 7 songs
Mhm.
from that. You know,
Yeah.
watching anime, I probably wouldn't have made the cut.
Oh my
And
gosh. No, that should have made, I was going to talk about that one needed to stay there. That I love the placement of it. I love where it is, and I think it's really needed on there.
thank you so much. That one was, I was so nervous to put that on there because, again, my music taste all over the place, but I like to write poetry and listen to spoken word music as well. So
Hmm.
to
Yeah.
be able to do that on my album was like, oh, we got that. And you want to know what's funny? That was one take. That was
Wow.
one take, and I didn't even practice where it was going to end up. And it was more like me going, I wonder if this poem is going to fit. And I said, just
Hmm.
record this one just in case.
Yeah.
And he hits record. And I did that all in one take. And I say this really heavy line about, you know, it's a metaphor for something. You know, we
Hmm.
won't trigger
Yeah.
warning, but
Yeah.
it's a metaphor for something. And I say 100 weighted blankets. And right when I say that,
Mhm.
the drums just hit and everything comes in. It was purely by coincidence that that happened, and we both I like side-eyed him at the same time, and he's like, "Keep
Yeah.
going, keep going." And so that song was really cool because normally, yeah, a vocalist will sit there and you'll take even people don't know this maybe, but even a verse is cut up, you know,
Hmm.
into your
Mhm.
best takes. You'll sing a verse 10 times and then take, well, this line sounded better when you sing it on the eighth time, and then
Mhm.
this one was the better on the sixth time. I've seen it where I've done such a good performance except one word and we'll take a word from another take, slap it in there. And I'll be honest about that. And like that's how you
Yeah.
kind of do that. And that song was just out. It just bleh, came out and it was done. And I was like, the song ended, and I was like, oh my gosh, one take, we did that.
Wow. That's amazing to hear that. And like when I was listening, it reminded me of like I'm a big La Dispute fan and the spoken word, and even
Yep.
parts of like Me Without You is that way too.
Yeah.
And so
Mhm.
for me, that brought me back. And then for me, like it forced the way that it is spoken word, like forced me to listen to every word of it. Whereas some songs that other people have, or just in general, you're like, okay, I'm listening, but like, am I really listening? No, like with that one, like I'm listening to it. It is
Yeah.
there's like that is one I encourage anyone listening or watching, just start with them all, but go to that one. It's so special.
It's funny how that one, yeah, how it's shaped up because it really is just, I was watching anime when I wrote that.
Wow.
I was watching One Piece and I started having a panic attack and I kept rewinding and it's in Japanese. So I say it in the opening of the
Yeah.
song, but it's in Japanese and I need
Yeah.
to read the subtitles. And so that whole song is about having a severe panic attack that is spiraling out of control during like one of the most important parts of the episode. And I just had to keep rewinding and keep rewinding. And so that's where that came from. So again, even those like far out experimental songs I did are still taken from like a moment in time.
Mhm.
You know, it's not something I'm just conceptualizing. It's like, no, this is actually a song about me having a panic attack
Oh my
while
God. Like,
watching anime. Just
wow.
like it sounds.
And it's like you're taking us along with us, like in that. And
Yeah.
that's like another thing, like when I started the record, I'm like, oh, this is like a springtime, like I'm a theme like I like seasonal music listener. And
Hmm.
then as I go on, I'm like, oh, well, this mood is shifted. Like once you get to like the tail end of this thing, it's not this like springtime and the flowers and happy like summertime, like hanging out. I'm like, oh, okay, now this is like October, November, and I'm like,
Yes.
in
Oh my God. You
it.
could, I don't know if you see the smile on my face, but you were the first person to get that. Yes. It is supposed to feel like the seasons are changing, and spring is specifically the first feeling of the album. So for you to say, I've never heard somebody call that out.
Wow. I
It's incredible. I am going to tell my producers.
Listen, I have spent like so much like just listening to it because I'm like, I, like I said, I'm that album person. If somebody gives me a record or an album, it's like, I am that person that will sit there and listen to it and like, what do I see in it? How do I see myself in it? What season is this? What this?
Yeah, I'll fit
So,
myself into those songs, and
Yes.
how to, yeah. And I just did it with the band Camino. The band Camino is one of my
oh,
favorite bands. I
yeah.
think that they are so good at crafting a song. I don't even, I know what it is, like
Yeah.
the science and the theory behind it, and like if we want to be boring about it, but like the way that they pull it off is just on another level than anyone else is doing. And that was one of the albums I really sat down with, and I was like, oh, whoever is writing these lyrics is going through a breakup right
Right.
now, and they're finding themselves again. And uh, it tells a story. The album tells a story. So I'm so glad that I didn't just listen to the singles and I listened to the whole thing, because
Mm-hmm.
they touch on things like a sideways figure eight in one song, and then in another
Mm-hmm.
song they're talking about infinity, and then they're talking, they mention these things, and you're catching them in different songs and tying them together. And yeah, so I'm with you. And people like you are rare, people who listen to an album all the way through, because I'll be transparent, I think I have had about 50,000 people listen to the singles on Spotify, like
Yeah.
one of the singles specifically. Um, but to get through the front to the back, all 18 songs, truthfully, I think only about 1,500 people have done that on Spotify. And if you're a band out there and I just said only 1,500, I mean it in like in the
Right.
proportion to like the amount of people
Yeah.
that follow me, and like the
Mm-hmm.
fact that I have 2 million streams, to see that only 1,500 people made it from the first song to the last song.
Yeah.
But then to see like
Mhm.
50,000 streams on the single, it really drives it home. Like, oh, this is why labels don't like full lengths. Like, because even
Oh,
I see it. And
oh,
I got a little disappointed, but then I was like, I'm not disappointed at all anymore, because it's there. And the people
mhm.
that did listen, listened. And now those songs that haven't had their full shot at being a single on TikTok, where everything's being
Mhm.
released as
Yeah.
singles. Now these 18 music videos I'm putting out are giving me a chance to highlight
Yes.
each song that,
Mhm.
wasn't released as a single. So
Oh, and that's what I wanted to ask too. Like, so you're on doing 18 DIY videos, and I'm such, again, a visual person. Like, I loved what
Mhm.
Turnstile did with their record and that visual experience. And I was like, wow, I never thought about that. And then, like, when I watch a music video the same way, I'm like, why did they pair this imagery with this or maybe this color, like what did they do? So now hearing you're doing that, do you think that's really like another way for you to really connect with these songs and have like, this is this one, this is that, and this is what I think for like even like your song like typical, this is what I want to do with that, like,
yeah, 100%. Yeah, it feels like I'm getting a chance to be creative with these like creations that I already put out, and like get to go back and be like, okay, now let me like it feels like I drew a bunch of sketches, and now I'm going back in to
yeah.
color them, you
Mhm.
know?
Yeah.
And yeah, like typical, I was like, do I do a music video for this? Kellen Quinn's on the song. Like, what
Right.
do I do
Oh,
for this? And
yes.
I was like, no,
Mhm.
I think I do like this like time lapse of me painting my nails in like a really anxious manner, because it's just this moody idea of like these horrible thoughts that I have in my head sometimes, and then while I'm just doing something so typical like painting my nails,
Mhm.
uh and yeah, so all of these art choices are very distinct. I don't want anything to look professional, um it, in a way that that might sound weird, but I don't want anything other than it to look like found footage. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
Mhm.
Blair Witch Project
Yeah.
style. Like everything
Yeah.
needs to be like narrative as well. You're peeking into things. So I'm trying to do my best with that, like making sure that, and it's hard because I've got a tripod and trying to
Right.
add like the effect like I had a friend there holding the camera sometimes.
My
Uh,
gosh.
yeah. But no, yeah, like Unclear is this very like Saving Private Ryan, gray,
Mhm.
blue, nasty, sad filter, and then this new one I Used to Dream is red for a
Yeah.
very obvious reason, and is red because that is the darkest song on the album. That is
Mhm.
rock bottom, as I Used to Dream. And so even in the captions, I every time I sing the word red, it's red, and just
Mhm.
little things like that. I'm like, I wonder if people are gonna notice,
Yeah.
and so then to come on here and hear you say that you've picked up on some of these things is really cool and validating, I guess.
Yeah,
So
I
thank you.
appreciate someone like that that takes, and especially again in this world where, not that they don't want you to, but it's like it's hard to do that because sometimes some people that doesn't resonate with them or they don't pick up
Mhm.
on that and they're just like looking for, all right, what's the hot song or what, let me
Yeah.
scroll. What's gonna catch me for 10 seconds? And listen, I'm like, I get it. I have an ADHD brain. If you don't catch me within like 5, 10 seconds, I'm sometimes that person and I have to
Yep.
go back. But it's refreshing to see that in the work. Like, even, I mean, we just brought her up on another episode, but Haley Williams, someone
Oh
like that,
yeah.
the way she rolled out in the imagery on each like different photo of the single and everything. It's like people like that. We need to lift more people up like yourself that are doing that and taking the
Yeah.
Yeah.
time to truly create that art instead of just like, here's a TikTok song. And again,
Yep.
not downing, I'm not a musician, but yeah, we just need
We need
more
more of it,
of
and
it.
Yeah.
it's what the fans want, and
Right.
I think that we do them a disservice by not doing that and just assuming that they don't want it. Even if you have 100 listeners a month,
Right.
that's a
Mhm.
big deal. And those
Yeah.
people are choosing you, like your art. So like, what do you want to do with it? You know what I mean? You might not be selling out 2,500 cat venues, but there are people choosing to type your name into an app and then listen to the art that you've created. And think about the way that you view songs, like the way
Mm-hmm.
I have such a visceral reaction to Counting Crows. Like
Oh,
every time I
Mhm.
hear Mr. Jones, I see the movie that doesn't even exist. It exists in my head, but I have a
Mhm.
movie for Mr. Jones because I've heard that song so many times.
yeah.
And it's just I don't know, giving people something more than just the music is big to me. And it's something I'm working on a lot of projects at once right now, but I have a really
Yeah.
cool thing I'm working on I can't talk about, but I'm working on um kind of merging a bunch of different aspects of media into one place
Yeah.
where all of my fans can hang out and do these cool things.
Oh, so
And
cool.
so I see the need for it. And I'm glad you brought up Haley Williams
Mm.
again because you brought up two bands now that have gone mainstream, My Chemical Romance and
Yeah.
Haley
Mhm.
Williams, Paramore. And I
Yeah.
think that's an example of if we keep gatekeeping the scene and we don't let our favorite artists go mainstream and do
Mhm.
what they want to do, then we're only hurting our own experience because now
Mhm.
once we let them achieve that next level of success or fame or whatever you want to call it, they have a whole new access to a whole new slew of tools, at their disposal, and they
Mhm.
have the creative freedom to be like, I want to do this thing where there's a creative director and this is happening, and then that's not going to happen if we refuse to tell people about our favorite bands because we don't want them to ever not be playing 500 cat venues.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Ah,
it's a disservice to the industry, when you are gatekeeping. So seeing those bands like break through, like
Yeah.
my chem and play these huge
Oh, yeah.
shows and see the financial success from it and see the fame from it and get to experience that as an emo band. Like
Mm-hmm.
that,
mhm.
it's okay that that happened, and it's okay that my chem went mainstream because they're just that good. They deserve it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like to see them like I didn't get to go to the show here in New Jersey, but I got to I like was like stalking TikTok and Instagram because I was like I got to see this like MetLife show. But it was like one of those things like I even like got really emotional about it because like you think about like when you were younger and in the scene what everybody thought Mike Hem was and then now look at them and it's again like just like you said it's the importance of like not gatekeeping. Don't be like I was when I was younger. Don't do
Yeah.
it.
Don't be like
Mhm.
me. I
Don't
got
do
caught up in the
it.
Saddle Creek vibe too.
I was awful. And I mean, too, like with this 18 songs in this record, do you think like obviously creating them and having them, it almost helped you kind of close some of those chapters that you were talking about and just kind of be like, okay, like I processed this in this way and it's really helped me.
Yeah, so much so. Great question. And you can tell if you listen to Unclear, that's actually a song. It was a 17 song album, and it became an 18 song album after one of the biggest gut-wrenching betrayals and heartbreak of my entire life occurred. And I flew back to Omaha. And they're like, why? I'm like, because I need to do one more song.
Hmm.
And we did it, and Unclear came out, and that's me screaming. I'm
Hmm.
literally screaming, and it
Yeah.
changed everything. But that closed the book for me. That was like I got that out, and now I don't listen to my music too much after it's out. I'll listen to it on repeat for like a week after I release it to listen if I mess anything up. What can I do better? But
Hmm.
then typically I won't really revisit my old music. But Unclear is one of those that I'll kind of go back to every now and then and be like, oh man, that person had a chokehold on you, and look at us
Hmm.
now. We made it out, and so I'm excited to see like these new songs that I'm writing. I am taking a second to really think about what I want to do next because I have
Yeah.
18 songs now to promote. So
Yeah.
I
Oh
bought
my
myself
gosh.
Mhm.
some time,
Yeah.
and because only about 1,500 people made it all the way through. Again, like I said, these are singles in themselves. Each time I promote one
Right.
with a new music video. So I bought myself some time. I've got some great ideas on how I want to move this project forward. And yeah, I think this album was kind of like my way of saying, like, look, here's the album, here's the foundation. I am now halfway through 35. The industry has no idea what to do with someone like me. They
Hmm.
just don't. I have the followers, I have the views, I have the fans, but they don't know where to put me. I don't sound like anyone that they know who. It's just a weird thing. And so it's like, I have to do this myself. So
Hmm.
I'm going to kick down every door and brute force my way into every conversation that I need to um, until I'm where I want to be. So,
Oh, that's a good mindset because that's one thing too, like being in your 30s and like this is something I've always wanted to pursue. I brought Justine on and even me like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna admit it, but like I am 39, about to be 40 very soon, and I'm kind of freaking out about it. But it's like even being that age too, like whether you're 35 and up, if you want to pursue something and you're still chasing that, it's like people don't know how to react to that. And sometimes they're like, when are you gonna like just let that go? When you're gonna do and I think it's so
Mhm.
beautiful to see someone like yourself like still doing it and you just completed, like I said, 18 songs, great songs, and you're now doing the video. And I feel like it's only going to, and I hope only go up from here because it's so well deserved.
I hope. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of getting that tough skin because
Yeah.
I'm a 35-year-old man who, you see that meme going around where it's like, oh, you're 30 and on tour, cool, bro. And they had one for
Mm-hmm.
like each age. Like I
Yes.
couldn't help but notice that like my age was getting shared the most,
Right.
you know? And I'm like, okay. And I get it. It's like I
Yeah.
get it. And I see people look at me and like even if I was to like go out there and try and like if I was interested in like dating right now or something, like trying to
Right.
explain to someone what it is I do, what my job is, and like it doesn't make sense. And so it's very much like I chose this dream. It's an isolating dream. It's a lonely road. I'm glad I have my producers with me. I'm glad it puts me in the same room as people like you, and I get to make these
Mhm.
connections. Um, and I think that if you were 49, you would be very pleased with 39-year-old self, Lisa, for starting this. Do you know what
Mhm.
I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that 45-year-old Josh would be very upset at 35-year-old Josh if he
Mhm.
quit right now. So,
Mhm.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, I love that. I think that so many people are going to get so many things out of this. And I know I did. Like, there's so many things. And I'm like, this has just been so great. I
it
truly
has been.
appreciate like everything you've said. And I'm like, I knew this was going to be a good one. I had like the
Mhm.
Tuesday of like the Monday of all Tuesdays today. But I was like, listen, at 6:30, we're hopping on and it's going to be so great. And just again, like, appreciate you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was so much fun. I also was having a Monday today, and so I'm
Yeah,
glad that I got to come here and turn it into a Tuesday.
there we go.
You know?
This podcast is a part of Never a Phase Network. It's a network of creators and podcasters, people who are truly elder emos who are trying to keep this scene alive just like you. Check out neveraphasednetwork.com and check out Never a Phased Network on all socials.